and welcome to yet another Mapping It Out this very chilly winter's evening. Well, it's chilly where I am. Hopefully it's nice and warm where you are and you're nice and comfortable and cozy, because this is the month that we get to see the thing we've been waiting for so long. Oh, yes. Yes. I am so excited for tonight's show. You have no idea. Well, perhaps you do, considering. No, I have not taken anything. I am just super hyped for what we are seeing this evening, and I hope that you are going to stay with us for the whole show, because if you don't, you're going to miss out stuff, and then you will be missed. Anyway, right. Great show tonight. Lots of lots of cool stuff coming up, and it has also been a while. It's been a while. Drigorex, I say nothing. You will have to wait and watch the entire show. Right. So, as usual, if you have a question, please put the word question in caps in front of your question so that I can ask it to our one and only guest, Till, as soon as I bring him in. And if I don't ask the question straight away, do not panic. I might be saving it for a section later on in the show where it is more appropriate. So, without any further ado or craziness or insanity from me, let us bring in our wonderful guest, Till. Hello, Till. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm also very excited about this episode. I can tell you I've spent way too much time on my slides today.
He spent the whole day. I spent the whole day on it. Yeah. Anyway, all right, Till, we've got a lot of stuff to get through. Very exciting stuff to get through. Everybody is going to be super excited. There's a lot of, in chat, people are like, is it biomes? Is it feet, says Mr. Bob like. It's not feet. It's definitely not feet at all. But, good guess. All right. Till, how are things going?
Well, they're great. Generally speaking. Someone has stolen a couple of months, I feel. It's end of November. We're approaching December. The year is over. But I wouldn't mind. Well, honestly, personally, I'm fine with it. I'm tired. I can use a break. But work-wise, I could use another month. Like, there's still so much to do. And I feel like I want to end this year with all the stuff that we have and that we're working on. So it's a really exciting time at the moment. But again, it's like you look at the task lists, you look at the time schedule, you look at people taking Christmas vacations, and you're like, oh no, it's only a couple of weeks until the year is over. So that's how I'm feeling.
There we go. There is a request. Could you increase your volume slightly?
My volume. Yes, I can. Okay, there you go. Please let me know if that is better. Otherwise, I can still ramp it up a little bit. I can also move closer to the microphone.
Well, that certainly makes you sound deeper.
Oh, no.
All right.
Okay.
Shall we jump into company news, Till?
Yes, sir. Let's do that. Let's talk about company news.
Fantastic. Okay.
As always... Let's start with Let's start with battle maps, or let's start with the whole company overview. Let's start there. So what is happening? Actually, that slide is outdated as we speak, because the B stands for battle map. For those of you who can't remember or haven't seen that infographic here before. In regards to the battlemap editor, today we had our version 5.14.2 release for the battlemap editor. And that means that the winter cleanup is already done and released. The bug fixes related to the asset manager are done and released. There are a couple of things that might come in December. Because we now need to collect feedback and see, did everything work out? Did we miss something? But while I was working on the slides, or let's say, when I was finished with the slides, I got the notification that the release has gone live today. So that is already good news here. So what's coming for the battlemap editor, and we're going to talk about this a bit tonight, is the account unification. And you can see that account unification is actually something that is on the outlook of all our tools. So in regards to DEIOS, the Version 0.7, the big one, the world map workover, has been released and has already received its first patch because aren't patch days great days? When we released it, our Windows certificate was still properly running. 2 days later, our Windows certificate ended, and we had to it was actually on auto renew, but the company decided to switch from digital tokens to physical toggles, like dongles, those old things that you plug in, and only that certifies your, well, we had to wait until Post brought it over. Then I had to ship it to Andy, who then had it to plug into his machine to then tell Ilya to connect to his PC to build the new certified Windows version. It was quite a ride.
Okay.
But that one has been released too, so we're already in 0.1
Okay.
with DEIOS. And now we are collecting, or we have already received a lot of feedback from you guys. There are usability fixes that need to be done. Some like, for example, the rivers still behave a bit weird when you copy paste or when you move them. So there's a bit of bug fixing there, which wasn't unexpected. It was such a massive overhaul over the whole system for world maps that although we did a lot of testing, we were quite certain that we will miss some spots. So that's work in progress. 0.7.2 is being worked on. I don't know, like, I would have loved to have that information for tonight. I don't. So we might split it into 2 separate patches because the city asset packs are already done and ready. And there are a couple of new world map assets also in the pipeline. So initially we said we want to bundle it up and release everything with the hotfix and the patches for the world map editor in one big 0.7.2. Now I need to wait on how much can we squeeze into that, because I want to release something next week. So it might be that we're splitting it in 0.72, 0.73. But generally speaking, that is going to be a big part of what's happening in December, is just going to be clean up, making sure that the worked over world maps are working properly. And when you look at the Outlook, you can see that account unification is also a topic there, as well as the asset manager integration. But most importantly, biomes are on the table now. And we're going to talk a little bit about them today. And lastly, the asset manager, there is again, version 1.12 has been released today. So the login issues that have been bugging us should be resolved. I haven't had the time to test it myself, so I don't know if it works, but I trust my trusty people. When they say it works, it works. There's a couple of usability improvements and just general bug fixing. So what's coming next for the asset manager is going to be again, the account unification. And then for DEIOS, where the asset manager integration takes place, of course, the asset manager needs to be updated to have a DEIOS integration. Right.
Okay. I mean, that's good. That's good. Now, this account unification you mentioned 3 times, quite literally.
Yes.
What is the account unification? Talk to us about that. And it's not so much a major thing. It's just something that someone should do if they've done different things.
Okay. So, generally speaking, it is a super major thing because we are, over the course of the years, we started with the battlemap editor. Then we had our second Kickstarter campaign with DEIOS, where we back then thought it would be clever to have a separate DEIOS login. And now that DEIOS is getting ready to go into open beta and be kind of publicly available, we realized that you have to have two separate accounts, which doesn't make sense at all. As you've seen in the chart before, we have 3 different products that all authenticate through, at the moment, 3 different kind of authentication systems, because each one was built separately. And we're bringing all of them together. So we've created kind of a super database for users where all the DEIOS users, all the battlemap, Dungeon Fog, battlemap editor users, all the asset manager users should be unified in, which means that you ideally don't have to log in continuously, because we all know that this is a bit of a pain, that you have to log into the asset manager repeatedly, that you have to log in into the battlemap editor, and then you have to log in into DEIOS, and you might have 3 different logins for those things. So all of them will be merged together. Right. This is in prep, and we're making quite a lot of progress there. We expect it to take place probably not before Christmas. I think it's safe to say that it's going to happen in January. But I'm talking about it today because you guys can help us here to some degree, exactly. Because if you if you have both, like if you have a DEIOS account and you have a Dungeon Fog account, and they're using separate emails, the result will be that once we unify them, we might spot which accounts belong together, or we might not, which means that our system, like our migration scripts, will create 2 separate accounts. And then you would have to reach out to us and tell us, hey, wait, I have 2 separate accounts now, but this one has DEIOS and this one has the battle map, all my battle maps. Can you please merge them? And then we have to manually merge them. We can avoid that if you just update your email addresses. So if you go into your DEIOS account, for example, and make sure that you're using the same email address that you're using on the Dungeon Fog account, then the auto migrate will simply solve that issue, and the accounts will be merged in one without any problems. So this is our first kind of early notice in regards to this is going to happen. And if you can assist us by just making sure that you use the same email address on all, like on both of those accounts, it will be a tremendous help for us.
There we go. Okay, sweet. And of course, there'll be social media saying, hey, this is coming out. You should
yeah. There's going to be email notifications, and we're going to put it on our website, and we're going to put it on the account manager for DEIOS. So if you're not intend to spend the next 2 months under a rock, you will get a notification in that regards. But just saying, the more you talk about it, the more it reaches people. So we're starting talking about it now.
This is true. I shall also have to cancel my holiday under a rock. Let's talk about battlemap.
Those are the best holidays.
They really are. Let's talk about the battlemap editor, because we've got some new assets.
Yes. Okay. So since our last mapping it out stream, which was in September, I believe, September the 18th, we have again collected a lot of new asset packs in our marketplace and in our content subscription. And if you are using Dungeon Fog as a premium member and you have your Patreon Connect active, so you're connected to Forgotten Adventures, or you're connected to Planet Hoppers, or you're connected to Chipping Grove, then all of those asset packs are automatically available in your asset library. So it's 12 new packs, which I think one I would like to highlight is I'm super excited about the Flesh Fest. I'm sorry, it's hidden. The title is hidden here, but they're called Flesh Fest from Forgotten Adventures, and they're internal organs, and you can build. I remember the map that you made once, Guy, with where you have that the earthworm thing, where you could fight the beast from inside.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing pack for that. I hope I soon have time to play around with that pack a little bit and
I
build
do
some.
like the bones, the skeletons as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The dungeon decor stuff.
Yeah.
That's also really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Forgotten Adventures has been super busy. I don't know. I'm fairly certain if you're a Patreon connect on Dungeon Fog with Forgotten Adventures, you might have over 100,000 assets by now. They are insane, and all the assets look amazing. So this is really cool stuff. And we ourselves also had 3 packs that we released over the course of the past months, which was the final pack, Castle Interior, for our Castle collection. We updated our Symbolicon packs with new symbols from Symbolicon. And the latest one is the Boats pack, which was inspired by Venice. Where we said, hey, we haven't done any lagoons or like, how do you call them lagoons in Venice?
Yeah, lagoon canals. in
Canals,
Venice.
that's the word I was looking for. And so we said, hey, what if we do something where you have a city or maybe a dungeon or location that can only be traversed by boats, and it's a bit Asia inspired with all those parasols and bamboo lids and stuff there. So I think it's a fun little addition. It works absolutely nice with the Fisherman pack. It also works nicely, I think nicely, with if you want to do something a bit more Magitech, because there are like crystals and glowing balls and parasols, like glowing parasols in there. So if you want to do something weird, I think that is a really fun pack to do.
Just quickly, Hellrock made a comment in the stream. Is this the current stream? I just noticed it says February 2024. I did not notice that when the stream went up. I don't think you did either, Till.
No,
So
I
welcome to
didn't.
February.
I thought
Till,
I
you
changed
said you said you wanted a few extra months. Well, surprise, you've got 10.
Back in February. I'm not sure if I'm now.
No, please, that's too far. Anyway, no, it is definitely a current stream. Don't worry. The type. To be honest with you, the live streaming stuff, it does its own thing. It really does. Okay, so battlemap editor moving swiftly along. Some beautiful assets. Cannot wait. But something that I've been waiting for this entire evening is the DEIOS update.
Yes. So
let's talk about Project DEIOS.
Exactly. That was all the battlemap stuff going on, and now people, I'm sure, are excited to hear about what's going on with Project DEIOS. So, first of all, if you've missed it, version 0.7.1, the world map workover, is already live. So if you haven't had the chance to use your auto updater, do it now, or go to your account manager, grab it and download it. If you want to know in detail what is going on in there, what has changed, the previous Mapping It Out already did quite a thorough dive in, I believe. Also, there's a Kickstarter update that looks at all the things like texture brushes, shadow and light, the reworked landmass outlines, the reworked shallow waters, the new wave system. So there's so much. We took everything that we developed in the city map editor in 2023, then looked at it and said, what can we use for world maps? How can we unify that to make sure that all the tools behave and look and act similar? We've been pushing hard on improving the aesthetics. So I think this is a really, really cool update. And if you want to update maps, just make sure that you look at the little map version icon. 11 and above, so 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, all those map versions should update properly. Older map versions, like older than 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, and so on and so forth, they unfortunately do not update because the technology is just too far off. But generally speaking, most maps, like if you've been following along, if you're keeping DEIOS up to date, then this shouldn't be an issue for you. So yeah, so that's done and dusted, and now we're working on kind of getting rid of all the kinks in there. And while we are doing this, we of course also add new stuff in. And
Exactly.
already been talking about, okay, here we can see it again. I think we've already talked about that, so I'm going to skip over this one.
Because
we've been already talking about new asset packs that we constantly release. And I have been, for those of you who are on Discord with me, chatting away in our DEIOS channels, you might have seen, you might already know what new asset pack is coming. I've posted a couple of teasers when I was reviewing the artwork. But I was impressed by the final artwork pack that I got because it is absolutely amazing. The Asian City asset pack, it's a massive asset pack that comes to the city maps. Is coming with version 0.7.2. And again, I want to hand it out next week. So it's going to be either a smaller release that more or less brings 1 or 2 bug fixes for the world map, but primarily the asset pack, or it's going to include a bit more world map bug fixing. I don't know yet. Generally speaking, it comes with 150 assets, where 145 of them are for cities or city maps, with, I think, really beautiful. Some of them are hidden. You might be able to catch those lampions and other stuff. You can see it here. It's sometimes it's baked into the buildings, but it's available as free assets and paths as well. So it should be everything that you need to create Asian-styled or medieval Asian-styled cities. And I had a lot of fun making maps with it. It's also really cool to introduce a couple of those assets into just your regular fantasy map.
Absolutely.
Because they are really cool, more traditional temples, and also statues and stuff. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they are really pretty. And hopefully, as you say, we'll get those in the next sort of few weeks or so. But I think it's time for us to talk about the thing that I've been waiting for the whole freaking evening. It's like, yes. That's all very nice. That's all very nice. Move on.
You're absolutely right, guys. Thank you very much, and happy map making.
Anyway. It's here! Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
Right. Yeah. I think you're voicing a lot of our community here, because we have been. This is the top one request that we constantly get is, when the F do you finally start with biomes? And the answer is 1.5 weeks ago. So we have ticked off all the major tools that we wanted to introduce in the world map editor, which leaves us with one big tool left that we now want to implement. And we're going to. I've worked tons of slides in there to show you our thought process behind it and why it actually is really good that we're starting now and haven't started with it earlier. Because now we already have all the core fundamental tools available to create biomes. Now it's basically just plugging together all that we have to create a new tool out of it. And therefore, I would say let's let's dive into it, and let me give you a quick rundown of what is the biome tool, how does it work, and how will it look. Right? Okay.
Absolutely.
So first of all, I think for those of you, I think most of our viewers already know what the biome tool is. They've seen the little prototype montages we did on the Kickstarter page. We've been talking about that, but just to pick everyone up and talk about what the biome tool means to me or to us as we develop it. It's basically it's a shape-based tool, which means similar to, that's why I put it here, similar to the landmass tool, where you define an area, and that area is then used to generate a combination of outlines, shallow water, waves, landmass, texture, all of those things. The way that the tool behaves is that you modify, you're not modifying specific props, although you can. You're modifying a certain area. And we use that area to populate it with information and to turn it into a biome. So if you try to picture how that feels and looks, think about how land masses work, and then just think about, okay, but how do you turn that into a biome? And that's exactly what we're going to look at. Right. Any questions so far? Clear?
No, all clear.
So similar to the way that we're doing it with land masses, when you draw the shape, as you can see, I'm using my mouse to kind of draw that shape here, right? So internally, what we do is we take that shape and we divide it into separate areas, right? We have the main outline defined by the shape that you have drawn, which is the main border here. Then we take an internal extension, more or less like a softness to a brush. You could think of similar behavior, where we say, okay, there is an outer border to it. So we extend that internally to an outer border, and we also kind of indent it into an inner border, which allows us to create 3 separate areas that we can then internally use. So we have the core area, we have the inner bleed, which kind of goes into the core from the inside of the tool, and then we have the border bleed, which means it goes from the shape that you have drawn to this invisible imaginary outline that I have decided here, right? So when you draw a shape, this is internally what we are doing with it. And of course, you can add to that shape by just clicking on the plus button and then draw and add to that shape, which would, of course, then modify the shape into this new form that you've created. Or, of course, you could subtract from it, which would create this. And here you can see what we use, what we do with it. We create action areas that we can then fill with biome content. So we have the core area, we have the inner bleed, and we have the outer bleed area, right? I think so far, not a big surprise, pretty straightforward. Now, why are we doing this? The reason why we're doing it this way is because the landmass tool has already a lot of technology implemented. It has the whole shaping tool, it has the shallow water, it has the coastal waves. So all the logic is already there. And if we're talking about biomes, we're talking about specific landmass areas like grassland or desert or swamp or mountains or forest. Now we could potentially just do brushes there. We could say, well, grassland is basically just a texture brush. However, since we are working on really big maps at some point, at least sometimes, yeah, you can create big maps. It's almost impossible to avoid texture repetition. So the texture pattern will eventually repeat and repeat and repeat. And when you zoom out, you will notice that repetition in the texture. Whereas if we take that shape, and here you can see I've still kind of overlaid that shape here, but then I've kind of removed it so we can see how it looks without the shape influencing our perception. And please keep in mind, those are prototype, this is prototype development. This is basically us experimenting with the aesthetics, looking at it, saying, that looks shit, and then redoing it. But I wanted to bring some examples here today so that you can get a better picture of what that actually means. So it means that we can say, okay, there's an inner area that might be populated, as you can see, more with higher grass or stronger grass. There's the soft bleed area that is populated more with smaller grass and a different texture. And then we have the outer bleed that then is populated with, again, another texture and again with different props here. So grass might be a boring example. So here we can see it with desert. I've just inverted the color because yellow on yellow you can't see. So here again you can see the hot zone. And you can see that the bigger dunes will be mostly positioned in the core area, whereas medium dunes will be positioned somewhere in the inner bleed area. And then the smallest dunes, as you can see here, they will be positioned on the outside. And you can also see that there are 1, 2, and 3 different textures that are blending into each other. So instead of using 3 different brushes and then placing props, you basically just define the biome and we populate it. We will do our best to already auto-tune, fine-tune it so that it looks good as a prototype. But of course it will stay editable, so you can click in, select the specific prop, move it, delete it, and you can then make your adjustments. And of course you can add to the biome. Okay?
Just before you carry on, Nicholas Kopp and Mr. Boblike, your questions will be answered shortly. Patience.
Thank
Good
you.
questions.
Right. So I've shown desert and grassland as examples to what we call simple biomes, because they're not really challenging from a technical perspective. They're basically stacking brushes with different bleed and then randomizing props into it. But there are complicated biomes as well, biomes that require a bit more thought process behind it. And one of those is the forest, which we will pay most attention tonight. And we're going to talk about forests in detail. Here you can see it follows the same rules. It basically has where we defined the border. It has the trees, then it has an inner bleed, and then it has the fill or the core, and then it has the outer bleed, which here you can see creates more like a forest like a how do you call it, homogeneous mass of assets or of design, of aesthetics, and with the smaller trees more of an organic bleed to the outside, right? Last example is mountains. Same thing here. We can use the core area to place the biggest mountains, and then we bleed smaller mountains to the outside. So when you look at that, you have, I think, quite a nice combination of mountain range here. And then we top it off with specific textures that are placed beneath to kind of make that transition even smoother. Right?
Right.
Okay.
Now I'm wondering if it's time for one of the questions. Yes. All right. Let me ask some questions and you can tell me if they're going to be answered now or not. So Nicholas Kopp asks, what is the plan for the intersection of 2 biomes?
Oh, Nick. I would love to answer that now, but I think you should sit tight. We're going to talk about that specifically, and I have a demo. So we're going to look at that. But
Lovely.
trust me, that was a big pain in the ass, conceptually, and I think we've solved it. I love it. I'm super happy about it. You'll see.
Hey.
Let me know
No.
what you think afterwards. I want to have your feedback specifically on that question, if it is answered and if it is answered to your satisfaction.
Ooh, interesting. A double challenge. I like it. Mr. Bob Like asked the same question, basically. The Rigorex said, will the props be editable? But fine till answer the question while I'm still typing it. I thought I should ask anyway. Hans Joachim Meyer asks, can I change a biome to a different one?
That's an interesting one. I don't know yet. I hope maybe. I think it would make sense. Especially if you think about that you have a nice, let's say, lush grassland, and you would like to switch it to dry grassland to just change the type. I don't think that it's a problem. It might be a problem with the, like switching. Again, as I said before, there are a couple of simple biomes like swamps, grasslands, tundras, wastelands, those things.
Yeah.
And then there are a couple of complex ones. It might be that the switch from simple to complex might not be working. I don't know. But it is something that we will prototype, and I would say we're aiming for it. We hope we can do it.
Then another question from Mr. Bob Like, will there be new assets for biomes like snow-capped mountains and snow-capped trees?
Okay, so generally speaking, I've saw the discussion on Discord where someone, maybe you, I don't know, someone posted their own interpretations of snow trees and snow mountains and kind of autumn trees and autumn mountains. And it kicked off an internal discussion where we said, oh my God, we need to do this, and we need to do this soon. So it's not biome related per se. It is just generally something that we need to do. Biomes will require specific assets, at least some of the biomes. Like the special biomes will be biomes that require specific assets. Which will be provided as regular assets as well, so you can just use them, but they will be primarily developed to work as part of the biome tool. However, what we call the freestyle biome, then in reverse, is a tool where we open all the pickers. You can basically, like, if you want to have a biome that is using the core area to, for example, just place bridges, and then the bleed area to just place spaceships, and the outer area to then have grass, well, then you can do that in the freestyle tool. The reason we came up with it was because we realized that you could do really cool cities with it, like isometric, like metropolis cities, where you can load up different buildings in the core, then in the inner bleed, and then in the outer bleed, and it would create quite some nice city scapes. Okay, I hope that answers the question.
It does. All right, let's move on.
Okay, so because Nick, I think, brought it up, this is one of the main reasons that we spent so much time revisiting our initial concept, and that is how suitable and doable is the biome tool in combination with other stuff. And we're going to look at it. So I found a really nice, we're going to look specifically at forests for tonight, because that is one of the most complex biomes. And I want to kind of take you a bit on a journey with me to understand why we spend so much time revisiting the concept here. I found this, there's a really good YouTube video from Maps by Owen, sorry. He hand draws a lot of stuff, and he films himself doing it and gives advice. And here he posted the result of one of his videos where he compared different styles for ice or for world map forests. And when you look at it, I think it's quite obvious that the first one is something that we already have in DEIOS. The middle ones, I would personally say, at number 2 and number 4 and number 5 don't work. I think they, like number 2 is, that looks a bit more like clouds. If you do those little tree trunks at the bottom, it might look like trees. Number 4 is just a weird mix of top-down and isometrics, which doesn't work. And number 5 is battlemap. This is top-down. He even said it that you would then need mountains to be top-down as well, if you wanted to have that style. So for us, it means that if we look at biomes, we basically look at, we can already do this. This is no challenge. Can we transform the way that we do forests right now in style number 1? Can we transform it into style number 3? And you might have already seen that we have an approach for that and a concept for that. So let me talk about how we actually made that concept work. Just a comparison. Number 1 is already, both are done in DEIOS at the moment. The one is done regularly with the world map tool. The other is in the prototyping environment. But I think we both agree that number 1 is just convoluted and ugly to the eye. And I made it small specifically so that we compare, so that we can compare how it looks on a zoomed out level. Because when you zoom in, everything looks cool. But when you zoom out, it has to be more, the information that's transported has to be more simplified. So you still need to be able to identify this as a forest. And I think number 3 here, so our interpretation kind of does the job already. So how are we doing this? Our initial biome concept, what we did back when we prepped the Kickstarter, back when we did our first biome prototypes, was a very kind of simple hack to solve it. We basically said we have a ground texture that we are going to trace with trees with a border around it, and then we're going to duplicate the shape that we used for the texture at the bottom. We're going to duplicate it on top and just give it a different texture. And finally, we just sprinkle some specific canopy props on top of it, which would then create the final bio. Now, Nick, if you've been paying attention, you might be already able to tell why this is a bad idea.
Absolutely.
And the reason for it is it looks great. I think the testings we did was okay. However, it becomes a big problem when you try to combine things with it. Because if our forest is kind of a baked asset, and we have the tower and the mountain assets, and we try to combine and stack them, it's not going to work unless we create specific rules to circumvent that issue. And we've been discussing the rule sets for this, and we've realized this is a pain in the ass. We would have to create more or less a masking filter that you could then control to mask that mountain so that it overlaps the forest. Yeah, exactly. You're already shaking your head. So we said the same thing. We said, wait. This might be an easy way to solve it, but we might run into kind of a roadblock at the end if we try to do it that way. So we went back and we looked at it and we said, okay, what's actually, like, what is it that we need? And the answer is you need to have a defined border that tells you that this is the forest border. You might want to sprinkle some smaller trees outside to make it look more organic. But then what you want to have is you want to have do you say homogeneous?
Homogeneous.
Homogeneous. You want to have a homogeneous surface More or less. It should not be complete just one color, because then it looks just flat and boring. But you want to have a surface, and then you want to have those little canopy thingies on top that kind of define it when you zoom out. So we said, wait a second. We could actually do something different here. What if we emulate the same behavior by simply saying, we have the defined outline, but we don't try to create one shape that we put on top of it, but we define specific assets that work with the with that. Can you say it again?
Homogeneous.
Homogeneous, with the homogeneous kind of surface area. And here you can see it like in full picture, zoomed out, which I would assume suffer from my zooming, your streaming, and all the compressions that it's drawn through. So it might look shit, but that's good, because the question is, does it still look like a forest? And if your eye says, yeah, that kind of looks like a forest, then we're almost there. And then I've zoomed in so you can get a better understanding of what's actually going on here. And what we're doing is we're drawing the base texture. We're creating a border around it. So we're using that border definition from the shape that you've drawn to sprinkle assets around it. And we can use all the tools that we have, like mirror and draw from different trees, not just a single tree as I do in the prototype. So we can create quite an organic outline here. Then we sprinkle the outside. And then we have what you can see here, kind of at least a little transition. So it's basically, ignore that one for now. We have a transition from the original prop to a transitional prop, and then the homogeneous.
Yep.
Did it. Asset in here. So we use the inside area to fill with mainly those and a bit of those. And then we fill the inside up with the homogeneous and the canopy assets. And when we do it like that, and we keep them as assets, then we can actually quite simply have them use the same set indexing that we're still using on the world map. So when you place a mountain, or you place a tower, or you draw a river, it actually still it draws from all the logics that we've created for city maps and for world maps, where it says remove props, where it cuts through a forest, or where you simply place stuff in there and it is still accessible, or it automatically blends nicely into it. To come back to the original question, which I think you all get the gist of what I'm going to say, is you will be able, by this methodology, to actually draw one biome and then draw another biome on top, as we can see here. Those are mixed biomes where I just created the mountain biome, and then I copied it over and placed it just into the same file onto the forest biome, and it worked automatically. It does not work super nicely with the textures yet. I think it gets too dirty and too smudgy here, but that's fine. That's something that we can tweak. But generally speaking, if we continue on that development track, we have most of the framework and the technology already there. We just need to define the tool and some specific tool rules to create the biomes. And I personally think that the outcome is pretty nice.
I agree. Dorigo Exco has said, hung.
Hung?
Hung. Yes.
Is that a good hung or a bad hung?
I'm not sure what kind of hung it is. Halrock says that's awesome. Mr. Boblike says, that's great. So we can completely alter the biome and delete single assets that were
Yes.
placed by the tool too. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's lovely. I was wondering how you were going to get around the ZX's problem, because a biome is effectively a single asset, and yet you want to be able to insert things into that asset. So that's exactly how you've done it. That's lovely. Obviously, there's still some tweaking. If you look at the river, you would want the river, when it bisects the forest, to redraw the edges.
That is actually now something that we can look into because screenshotting is screenshotting.
Yeah.
And that loses a lot of quality. I have those those concept arts in DEIOS, and we can actually look at it. And I can show you what thought processes are in there and how we are currently working on those things. That is actually one of the samples that I have, because I've been looking at separate samples. I preferred that one visually, but that is up to discussion whether or not it looks better or not. Let me just, in the meantime, because I need...
Would two borders mean that the one forest is called the east and one is called the west? Or borders, does it mean it's still a single forest that crosses a river? Interesting question. Right, well, you've got a demo for us, and that will answer some more questions, right?
I'm here to answer questions over questions over questions.
Yes.
I got... Zoom just told me, your system resources are low. Do you really want to open another application? And I was like, yeah, let's try it. Okay. So let's...
Fingers crossed, and yes, you are getting a live demo.
Okay. So if you're wondering what you're seeing here, this is the dev environment. As I said before, Ilya spent some time actually getting it installed here for me, so I can quickly swap out assets and I can play around with the stuff in here. And this is basically how I am building and comparing like my biomes, my kind of it's more an aesthetic process at the moment, because the tool definition is done mostly. So Ilya is taking all the tool definitions, is reviewing them and making a kind of a doability study for himself, versus I'm prototyping some basic tools first, and then we're going to build up step by step. But my job right now is to find the best visuals for each biome that we want to hand out. So this is obviously just the start, where I said, okay, so this would be the forest that I would be creating if I would not be doing anything else. If we just had it. Do I like the style? The answer is no, I do not like the style. So as you can see, and the good thing here is I can really zoom in. So as you can see, when you go close up, you can see that I think this is already pretty cool. Having those slide treetops, at the moment, I'm wondering if that is actually necessary, or if we might just get rid of those little tippies here, and just use
have the outlines.
Yeah, and just use those softly blended outlines in here. But generally speaking, this is where I said, okay, so this is how the biome would look like. And then what do we have here? That was just forest and forest. I think I did that one for the screenshot that I showed in the demo. And here again is basically just setting up everything, looking at how this looks if I'm just combining two assets, and it's those two assets up here. If I'm combining them in here, do I get a nice border? By the way, if you want to know how often I've tried to do that, oh, that's just the 7 iteration. No. Here you can see how often I have been experimenting with different tree color variations to actually try and figure out what the right shading is. to place them in here. And then just testing how are the borders looking. Do we need to do something?
Till?
Yeah.
Do you have a green screen effect on that overlay? Or
Yeah,
some
it looks
kind of
like. Give me a second. That looks weird. Give me a second. That is which frame? Demo monitor left?
It's
No, I don't. Do you,
maybe it's I don't know. It just
Is it? No, it can't be that one. It looks a bit like there is a green screen effect in there, right?
it does. But
Yeah,
I'm
it
looking.
definitely does.
I'm looking at the final stream, and it doesn't look bad on the final stream. So maybe it's a I don't know.
Okay, so it might
thing.
be something that passes over to you on Zoom, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It
Because
could
I
be
can
something
see it in
like that.
Zoom, but I can't see it in OBS.
And I can't see it in the live stream. Okay, never mind. We're
brilliant.
going crazy here. It's all fine. It's all fine here. Nothing to see here. Keep going. Keep going. Thank you.
Okay, so here you can see my different experiments where I try to decide which looks best. So, and again, the important part is you always have to zoom out, because if you're just designing it on let's say the 1-to-1 ratio, you will, the details fool you. But you need to zoom out and decide what still looks like a forest, what looks believable on that zoom level. And if you look at that, I think all those look very foresty.
Agreed.
When you zoom in, oh, sorry, I wanted to zoom in, then it becomes actually kind of a taste question. Do you want, so this is with just a straight cut through. It cuts the border, it ignores everything else. This is what you have proposed. Where you said, no, wait, now we actually have two shapes, so the rules should be, we need to cut it like this, which means that it needs to have borders here and here. Technically speaking, I agree. And technically, like, I know that Ilya would love me to decide that version, because that is actually easier to do for him than this one, where when you look close, you can see that although it has the outlines here, the cut through uses the semi-transparent outline props, which I think from a certain perspective actually gives it a bit of more lively feel to it than this one. I think this is from the way that it's highlighted here to the way that it creates this dark foresty feel. I would prefer that one. But again, this is also you guys. Let me know what you think.
You know, there is a fourth option.
I listen.
Because if you look at that forest, if you look at that map, right? When I create hand-drawn maps, I will have the river running into the forest.
Oh, and then
this
cover
is
it up, and then
if
it's
it's
just coming out
continental.
somewhere.
Well, kind of covering it up. Every now and again, you get a little glimpse of the river, and then it pops out the other end, because the canopy would technically be covering the river. So a fourth option would be that it cuts through, it uses your mostly shadow light, but then it scatters some more green over the river to break it up a little bit. Almost like your middle option, so the one to the left of that, the one to the immediate left, that would be something that I would think would possibly work to make it. You see, because when I look at that, I see two separate rivers, two separate forests. The Great North Forest and the Great South Forest. Whereas...
Yeah. You're absolutely correct. That would be a fourth option.
Yeah. Well, I suppose then there'd be a fifth option, which is where you then have some of the little bits of that forest missing, so that people can see that it's flowing in this general direction.
I'm wondering if I can do that right now. Let me see.
Can you not delete the little...
Yeah, I can. I'm just figuring out if... Something like this.
Can you zoom in a little bit
Sure.
for the elderly? The elderly, I should say. Yes, something like that. I would do it a little bit more extreme. I mean, then you could just do it that way, I suppose. Just manually do it. Yeah, there we go. There we go. There we go. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's probably how I would do it personally. It depends on the purpose of your map. It really does depend on the purpose of your maps. So there we are.
So as you can see, there is no tool functionality at the moment. This is what
that's 'cause
Ilya
of the
is
work
currently
demo,
working on. For me, it is deciding on the style.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that too. That actually looks pretty cool. It is. It does. Let me show you a different map. Let me save that. I'm going to save.
Whilst you're doing that, we've got some questions. Mr. Boblike says, ask the question, will there be inside outlines when you create a canopy? Oh, I think that's what we're talking about, is if you split a canopy in half. So just double check that, Mr. Boblike, see if we've answered that one. Halrock says, I agree with the third option, but also having a bit of a canopy over the river could be nice. Mr. Bob says fifth option. Gary Norval says, is Dungeon Fog still a thing? And Project DEIOS, is it still being created? And as Mr. Boblike answered, absolutely, Gary, that's exactly what we're talking about. A very exciting day in terms of the Project DEIOS stuff with biomes being developed. Mr. Boblike says, both, oh no, he's already said that. Hans-Joachim Meyer says, GM's option is great. Okay, there we go. Another question from Mr. Bob. What question was from before we started? Okay, never mind. So there you are. Right. Okay. What are we looking at now, Till?
So I just brought up a different map, which is a much bigger forest.
Right.
And I think what we're playing around is when you. I'm trying to replicate that now. Let me just do some of those holes in here. What I experienced when I was doing the forest was that if you look at it with those holes in there, it actually starts becoming. I have to zoom in maybe because of the streaming. But it actually starts to become a much more realistic forest in terms of visual, because if you look at Google Maps images of forests, they never are completely flat surface. They're often more like sprinkled with those holes.
So it almost is when you're filling in the filler, you build in a little noise map that generates these holes automatically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is just stuff.
And then you don't have to worry about your caps.
Yeah, exactly. Because then the caps are not necessary. Because again, I feel like whenever we've been looking at so many representations of those biome forests that we're currently looking at, and when you go on Google image search and you search for forest maps or world maps, most artists use those little canopy tops to kind of give that visual representation of, we're still trees here. But at least for now, I feel like they're not really doing the job. So this is something that we'll still have to work out. Generally speaking, I think it actually, with those little holes in it, it starts to be looking more forest-like than before. Okay, so just
There you go. Live development on stream.
Yeah, live development. We're done. Okay, cool. Tick, tick, tick. I can take the day off tomorrow. Right, let's save that for a second, because I wanted to show, just so that you see what happens when you combine two biomes. Now I can't combine two biomes yet, but what I did was, when we look here, I specifically used the shape that I developed in Photoshop, where I said, okay, I want to create that shape area, so I can use it as a blueprint in DEIOS, and I can use it to place all the assets and test which assets works nicely, with the core area, the bleed area, and the outer bleed area. So I can more or less create full visual prototypes for Ilya that he can then use to compare to what his tool does, to get the best result. What I can do here is I can just quickly hide it. I could just copy that, and let's go. We don't need to save anything here now. Nope. And just go here, and now place it, and just move it. So this is the same replication of doing the same biome over each other. And when we go in, the beauty of the concept, again, is, I think, is that it works instantly. Because regardless of the biome, let's say you have a conifer forest and a dead conifer forest, or you have green conifer and winter conifer, and you want to bleed them into each other. That's absolutely doable, because you just draw one biome over the other. They start to auto merge into each other, because the set indexing will just do it for you. And we might have a slider, so we've discussed that already. We might have a density slider where you can actually reduce the density, so that, for example, the outer bleed areas or the inner bleed areas have a lower density, so that they become more visual when they intersect. So yeah.
And now a whole density as well.
And now a whole density as well. So many density sliders.
All the densities.
All the densities.
Yes. Can you draw a river through that? What does
Sure.
it do to the mountains?
It will kill them. But that's fine. So if I draw a river through this, it will, because the way that, like, if you look, I think, yeah, I think the mountain still has a very long base, so the detection might need to be optimized for big assets. But if I draw a mountain through this, it will remove. Sorry, if I draw a river through this, or pathways should do the same thing. Never tested it. It's time to break it. Remove props. There you go. Let's see what happens if there is a path going through. Oh yeah, it does remove the props.
But that looks stunning. That really looks stunning. That pathway through there looks absolutely amazing. And just as unrefined as it is, that already makes sense. And ironically, I suppose this is where you don't want the tree coverage, because paths are geographic.
Yeah.
I mean, they exist on the map, but you wouldn't see them on a map at this scale.
Well,
so it's a geographic anomaly.
Welcome
it's a
to my life,
cartography
guy.
tool.
It's pros and cons, and the worst decision, I think, the worst decision that you can often make is then to say, oh, let's make a toggle for it. Because it will end up with tons and tons and tons and tons of toggles and options, because you want to give all the options to the user. But in the end, it might just overly complicate or confuse things. So one of the things that's going to happen next year is we're going to review all those panels once again and try to clean them up and simplify them, which means, for example, the reason why we might not do the version where the tree canopy somehow bleeds over the river is simply because we agree with you and say, oh, but then it would work differently for roads. So do we really want to write exclusive rules for this tool and that tool, which then convolutes the programming again? And fairly speaking, if you would like to have really no, I need all the sevens. Let's go for this and this. Scatter them by 3 kilometers. and make 6 of them. Okay, so if you want to have a convoluted or overgrown old trail that leads through the forest, you could manually just
Agreed.
add
But
to it.
that works quite well, doesn't it? That still blends in.
Yeah,
In
absolutely.
quite, yeah. Yeah.
And that's why we're saying we're giving all those assets as regular assets out as well, because I don't like it. Because then you can kind of customize it to what you really want
Really
to
want
have.
to look. Some comments, some interesting comments. Driger X specifically says, I think the mountains as a biome, obviously it's going to need tweaking
Yeah.
because mountain ranges are not mountains.
Yeah.
They're hills and then lowland,
Yeah.
So
Absolutely
it's about
with
building those collections. But as you said, we can build our own collections.
Yes. In the freestyle, you can build
So-
your own collections. Again,
Yeah.
with the density sliders, you might be able. I'm absolutely with you. I haven't spent a lot of time working on the mountain biome yet. We said. So the way we're approaching it is Ilya is starting with the easiest, which is the grass biome, and is working his way up from the grass biome to the mountain biome to the forest biome. Myself, I want to have the forest biome defined, because then I can hand that over. And while Ilya is working on the grass biome, I'm finishing the forest biome, and then we're kind of meeting in the middle, where I'm looking at the mountain biome and decide how it looks like. Because I'm absolutely with you. If we go back to mountains, let me save that. That is actually quite cool. Yeah. If you think about mountains, it is more no. Yeah, that's actually a good representation, even if I'm using my dynamics here. It would be like a mountain range would probably be more something like this. And then it slowly kind of degrades down to let's go there, and let's say this is now 70%. So it would start to go lower on the ends and probably lower here and lower there. The question is, are the aesthetics for those mountains still working for such a mountain biome? Or do we specifically need to create different? Because here I'm using, at the moment, I'm still using the full outline mountains. I haven't even experimented with the softer outline mountains yet, which might work or might not. I can already tell that if we, whatever we hand out as a mountain biome is going to be some sort of variation of this base mechanic here. We're not going to try and although we discussed it, try and do something where you basically create real mountain ridges, because that will be just too much work, or even concept-wise, we don't even know if we aesthetically can do it for now. So we're definitely going to play around with ways of making mountain assets work as a nice mountain range. And then eventually, maybe later, when we get a better feeling for it, we then can think of doing something that dynamically generates a mountain.
But major progress, and more to come. So, Till, when are we expecting to be done with biomes, or when are we expecting to see them in a patch?
Yes, not this year. The reason for that is simply Ilya has to split his time between doing bug fixing, so that the current version, 7 point whatever version, is stable, we've decided that we are going to spend like it's more or less a so it's either 3 days. We haven't decided this yet. We've spoken about it more or less. It's either 3 days biomes, 2 days bug fixing per week, or the other way around, where it's 3 days bug fixing, 2 days biomes. And that very much depends on our meeting next week, when the team and I have collected the feedback and the bug reports, and we look at them. And if this is a list of things, then it's going to be 3 days bug fixing, 2 days biomes. But if Ilya says, no, that's manageable, then we turn it around. I expect like before Christmas to have the core prototypes ready. But just for internal testing, and then we need to polish them and do the UI. So I am fairly confident that we will have something at least to show in our January stream, where I can actually showcase the biome demos. Maybe, but I can't promise that today. Even have it in such a good state that we say, okay, we hand out the grass biome, we hand out the forest biome, and we hand out the mountain biome. Once those are done, we can then add more and more biomes, because then kind of the logic is defined. But that's all I can say from that.
Chat has just decided that they are no longer going to post bugs ever again. They will free up Ilya's time completely with no more bugs.
Well, that's nice, but probably not helpful.
Hey, you gotta give it to chat. I mean,
that's true. We have to do.
We all want biomes.
Customize king. Sure.
There we go. There we
It's
go.
going to crash all the time, but it has biomes in it.
But it has biomes. Till, this brings us to the end of tonight's stream.
Yes.
We've got some general housekeeping. There will be no stream in December, as per normal tradition.
Yes, exactly. It's for
festive
us,
season.
It's going to be like around the 22nd. I think everyone will just drop dead and have a bit of free time and load up batteries. We will be back around the 6th of January. Of course, there's going to be support over the weekend. Over the holidays. But generally speaking, the team is going to pick things up in January, and this means that our next stream is going to be end of January, which I don't know which one it is, like somewhere around the 27th to the 31st.
Fantastic. So watch out for that, because hopefully we'll have some more exciting stuff. Biomes fully or further developed, I should say. And that could be really, really exciting. I think what we should be doing over December is looking at how we would design biomes. What would you add? Because that template, that open template, is very, very exciting. It's like, how many hills would you have versus how many trees, how many dead trees, how many living trees? Anyway, very, very, very exciting. Yeah. Yes, so if you are taking a break over the festive season, we wish you a fantastic break. However you choose to celebrate, whatever you choose to celebrate.
Sorry.
Hopefully there'll be
Two
something
quick
there.
announcements. I forgot. Number one, if you are interested in grabbing a special deal for the battlemap editor, it's Wednesday, to my surprise. It felt like Thursday. On Friday is Black Friday. We have a special sales app. So check that one out. We have a Black Friday deal that starts on Friday, ends on Sunday. So keep an eye out for that. And also, Winter Wonderland is coming back up. There is going to be another Winter Wonderland Christmas calendar for the battlemap editor. And I think it's a pretty cool theme, but I'm not going to spoil what it is. You will see once it goes live.
Oh, that's exciting. I love Winter Wonderland, and I hate it. I love it, and I hate it. It's like, I want all of the assets now. Why must I wait? It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Okay, well, on that note then, anything else, Till?
No, just guys, thank you very much for your feedback. Thank you for your participation. It was fun as always. I did not crash DEIOS today, which disappoints me. But I almost crashed my PC, so it's kind of okay, win-win. And Guy, as always, thank you very much for being our host here.
My pleasure.
Shout out. If you don't know yet, Guy has a Kickstarter at the moment running. The Practical Guide to be a Great Player. Did I pronounce that?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Practical Guide, being a great player.
7 days left. So check it out. Christmas is coming. You have players on your table. You probably have awful players on your table too. So that might be a really good present to them.
Or, something to help improve your already good players. Just
Sure.
But yes, you can find it on Kickstarter, or if you follow it in our socials, you will find it there as well. And on that note, happy holidays to the Dungeon Fog team, to you watching at home, and until next time,
happy map making.
Happy map making.
Yes, and happy holidays. Bye, guys.